What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you another game preview / game prediction for the 2023 college football season. And our next game preview / game prediction will be Week 1's matchup between the LSU Tigers and the Florida State Seminoles. Rematch from last year's game in 2022. Last year, this game was in New Orleans. It's going to be a big-time game once again between these two teams. And also two experienced teams going into this game here in week number 1. And obviously, it's the biggest game, I believe, in the college football weekend for week number 1. And probably in all of college football this year. I mean, there's no really other big-time game that can beat it out here in week number 1. I know there's a lot of big-time games coming up on Saturday. This game is not on a Saturday, but it's definitely the biggest game, I believe, in week number 1 for 2023. So LSU versus Florida State. Again, Florida State came out on top with the victory last year, 24-23. But again, both of these teams got better down the stretch and everything. We'll go through a game preview here for both of these teams. We're going to give you the stats for both of these teams last year. Like I said, how this video works, we're going to give you the stats for both of these teams last year. We'll give you pretty much the game summary of what time the game will start and, of course, what day it will be on and who's the favorite going into this game. And then we'll give you pretty much, keys to the game here for both of these teams, keys to win this game for both of these teams. And then, of course, we'll give you a game prediction and see how the game goes down. So let's get right into it here with our game preview / prediction for Week 1's matchup between the LSU Tigers and the Florida State Seminoles. Again, a big-time game here coming up here in week number 1. And again, the biggest game, I believe, in week number 1 for the 2023 season. Let's start with the stat comparisons for both of these teams last year. Starting with LSU, they went 10-4 last year, so they're coming off a 10-win season in Brian Kelly's first year. The good thing about this LSU team was they went to the SEC championship last year, and again, this team got better down the stretch. We kind of, doubted them in the first half of the season, but second half they kind of got better. So you look at the points per game last year, 34.5 points per game last year. Total yards per game, 453.5 yards per total yards per game. And again, this offense got better down the stretch. Again, the first half of the year, it wasn't really successful for them, but the offense just got better and better each and every single game, week by week. Passing yards per game, 269.3 yards per passing last year. Jaden Daniels got better as a quarterback for LSU. He kind of, used his legs as well to run the football. And I think that was a good thing about Jaden Daniels is that he could run the football last year. And again, this team just got better down the stretch on offense. And Jaden Daniels, we know he had ups and downs at times, but again, the first half of the year, he just wasn't that good. But second half of the year, he got better down the stretch. So, and then you look at the rushing yards for this LSU team. They averaged about 184.2 yards per rushing last year. They weren't really the strongest running team, but again, they got better down the stretch with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. And then offensively in the rankings, they were 28th on offense, and then defensively, they were 41st. So that defense, they got better as well. That defense got better, and then the offense, like I said, just got much, much better as the weeks went by in the second half of the year. That's the LSU stats. And you look at Florida State stats from last year, they're also coming off a 10-win season. They went 10-3 last year. They just finished second in the Atlantic Division last year in the ACC. This offense was pretty explosive. You look at the points per game, 36.1 points per game last year for the Seminoles. Total yards per game, 484.2 yards per total yards last year. And again, this offense was just very explosive for the Seminoles, and you could tell right away by that number. I mean, this offense got better and better as well. And also, they were just a very explosive offense. Probably one of the top offenses in the ACC last year. You look at the passing yards, 270.2 yards per passing last year. Of course, Jordan Travis, kind of proved to us that he was a great quarterback for Florida State. And then you look at the rushing yards for Florida State last year, 214.1 yards per rushing last year. I think this was definitely the top, running team in the country last year and definitely in the conference as well. So, again, the rushing yards were really high for this Florida State team. And, again, this offense was very explosive, and they just missed out on that 500-yard mark. But you look at the offensive ranking, like I said, they were just really explosive. They were 10th in the country last year on offense, and then defensively they were ranked in the top 15 as well at 15th. So, all in all, Florida State, both sides of the football, they were just really impressive. And again, you look at the stat comparison between these two teams. The same, kind of record last year. They're both coming off 10-win seasons last year. Points per game, a little bit different there, but Total yards per game, Florida State has that advantage and a little bit of advantage in the passing yards, but The rushing yard game goes to Florida State. So both of these teams can run the football, but a big advantage for Florida State in both the offense and defensive rankings. Those are the stat comparisons between these two teams here. Let's now go into the game summary here for this game. And this game's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be on September the 3rd, so this game's going to be on a Sunday night. It is the Sunday before Labor Day on Monday, and this game will be on ABC. I think this was an ABC game last year as well, so it's kind of the same kind of game, but it's also in a different location. It's in Orlando, Florida. LSU, as of right now, is the favorite going into this game by 2.5 points, and the over-and-under is at 57.5. So, again, this is a big-time game. They're kind of expecting a low-scoring type game here. If this over-and-under was at 60 or something like that, it would be a high-scoring game. So they're kind of, it's kind of similar to last year. They're kind of picking this one to be a low-scoring type game. Both teams ranked also here in the top 10. LSU at number 5, Florida State at number 8. If you look at my top 25 poll, I have Florida State and LSU both in my top 5. I have Florida State at number 4, LSU at number 5, so I had the Seminoles ahead of them because they won the head-to-head matchup last year. Again, the final score of that game was Florida State 24, LSU 23. LSU missed an extra point there, to kind of tie the game. So, again, Florida State came out on top. But, again, this game's kind of like last year. It will be at 7:30 p.m. on September the 3rd. It's a Sunday night game on ABC in Orlando, and also LSU favored by 2.5 points. There might be more, Florida State fans here in this game because it is in Florida, but I think LSU fans will show up in this game. And again, the over and under is at 57.5. I don't really see it being a low-scoring type game, but again, it's another game that's kind of hard to predict. I mean, both of these teams are pretty even in returning production, and obviously the transfer portal and everything. So let's now go to the keys to the game here for both of these teams. For LSU, keys to win this game: force turnovers, run the football, and start fast. Now, the defense has to force turnovers. They got to get that Florida State offense off the field. They got to really force the turnovers in this game. LSU, I think, is going to want to run the football in this game as well. Jaden Daniels probably couldn't run that read option a little bit and everything. So I'm kind of expecting LSU to be a running football team this year, especially when Jaden Daniels can run the football as well. And then you kind of want to start fast in this game if you're LSU. You kind of want to score a touchdown early in this one, get a big-time stop on defense early as well, and maybe go up by a couple scores in the early part of the game. So, and then Florida State here, keys to win the game for them. Number one is obviously defense has to pressure Jaden Daniels right away. They kind of want to get him uncomfortable in the pocket there. And then obviously the defensive line for Florida State's really strong this year. And then you look at the secondary. Secondary is what I'm concerned about for Florida State. But again, I'm not really too concerned about the offense and defense for both sides of the football for the Seminoles. Again, they brought in some transfers to help them out in this game. And again, if they pressure Jaden Daniels right away, they could get him uncomfortable in the game for the rest of the time being as well. And again, defense wins games, in college football, so maybe the defense is a lot better for Florida State heading into this game. Passing game is going to have to be huge for Florida State as well, especially with Jordan Travis's, arm and everything. If he can, hit those deep balls down the, field and everything. Florida State's just going to be really explosive on offense and everything, and they can score a lot of points. But the number 3 key, speaking of offense, is be explosive on that offense. I mean, again, they have to be really explosive on offense if they're going to win this game. I think Florida State has a better offense than LSU, but again, both of these teams are pretty even in keys to win the game. And it was a really kind of, hard, keys. It was kind of hard to choose keys here for both of these teams to, win the game and everything because both of these teams are just really even. Let's now go into the prediction here for both of these teams heading into the game for week number 1 in a couple weeks. Or actually, I should say a week away. LSU versus Florida State here. Rematch from last year. Again, the final score of that game matchup was last year like 24-23. Florida State won the game. Remember, LSU came back from that deficit. They got off to a really slow start in the game. And it seems like Florida State was going to run away with the win, but LSU kept fighting to the end of the game. And then obviously it came down to an extra point to kind of tie the game and force overtime. But LSU missed it. LSU missed it. They're looking for revenge in this game. And like I said, this is a tough game to predict. I mean, it's the first game of the season. Again, we don't know what both teams are going to look like. We have to see them play against each other here. And it's going to really decide this game. We're going to find out which team is going to come out on top in this game in about a week. And it is on Sunday, September the 3rd. Here's how I think the game is going to go down. I think it will be competitive like it was last year, probably a low-scoring type game, but I really don't see these teams, struggling. I think I see these teams both struggling on offense. I think defensively, it's going to be a defensive type game because both of these teams brought in a ton of transfers, and they brought in, plenty of production coming back from last year as well. And again, I think this will be a defensive battle. First half, I think it will be a defensive battle, but I think second half, both offenses can kind of get things going. And I think both defenses probably will tire out in this one. I think this game goes into overtime. I think I'm going to call it an overtime game this year. I think the turnover is probably going to change the game here in this one, or maybe a game-winning touchdown makes the difference, and probably a missed extra point makes the difference as well. With that being said, I think a turnover probably changes the game in overtime, and I think I'm going to choose LSU here to win this game and get revenge on Florida State. And my final score prediction is 28-27. So again, this is a tough game to call. I don't feel very confident with my prediction, but I do feel very confident of how the game is going to go down. Like I said, it's going to be a very competitive game between the Tigers and the Seminoles. And this game, like I said, is just so hard to predict. I mean, it's probably the toughest, game preview / game prediction that I've had, this week. So, I mean, I think the other 3 games that I've done this week, or maybe the other 4 games, if I'm counting right, I mean, those games are pretty easy to pick. And then obviously this game right here was pretty much hard to predict and everything. But give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, my final score prediction is LSU 28, Florida State 27. And like I said, a turnover I think really changes the game. And I think this game does go into overtime here. And it comes down to maybe a game-winning field goal, or maybe it comes down to a turnover. So LSU is my prediction to win this game. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Who do you think is going to win this game, LSU or Florida State? And also give me your final score prediction as well. We'll have a final game preview / game prediction for you tomorrow. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.